I'm really glad that you messaged me about the project. And in all honesty, I came across like your Camino Instagram account
Yeah.
was recommended to me.
Really? Like on
Um,
like Instagram, it was like
like on
follow this.
Instagram, it was like,
Yeah.
yo, like check this out. And I like saw it and I was like, this is so dope that Kana did this. But
Yeah.
I was gonna reach out to you when I started this up again. And then
Mhm.
you messaged me and I was like, oh, perfect. So that's
Yeah.
it was just so cool to see
Yeah,
what
thanks.
you've been doing.
I
So
really it was really a cool experience. I started out, I was really nervous. I'd never stayed in a hotel by myself. I had never traveled anywhere by myself at all. And I was really nervous to start it. So my sister said that she would meet me. So we flew to Ireland together because both of us had wanted to see that. And
mhm,
we did toured like Ireland and the UK a little bit. And then I felt a little bit better, still really nervous to start, of course.
yeah,
But then I flew to South France, which is where the Camino started for me. They can start anywhere, really, anywhere in Europe. You could start it in Switzerland or Germany if you really wanted to. Just,
okay,
of course, as far as you go, that's how far you have to walk.
right. So
Uh,
yeah, let's I guess like what is a Camino? Like how did you find out about it? Like let's
okay,
start there.
yeah. So in high school, I was in a Spanish class,
Hmm.
and exam week, we didn't have an exam in Spanish, so we were just watching a movie. And I was listening to the movie kind of, but it really just kind of hanging out with my friends. But I got the gist of these people walked across Spain. And I was like, whoa, what a cool thing to do. And I was like, I got to put that on my bucket list. I got to do that. And so when I tried to, and then I just completely forgot about it as something that I wanted to do. And I was looking for an out I was getting a little unhappy in the position that I was in with my career, and I knew
Hmm.
I needed a pretty big change, and I didn't know what that change was. And I applied to an internship with ESPN at Disney World, and I got to the last interview and then didn't get the job. And
Bummer. Okay.
it was such a bummer. I wanted the job so bad. It was a management internship in ESPN, and as you know, my all of my job experience has been in sports, and I've ran two gymnastics and cheer programs. In college, I worked with the softball and baseball team,
Right, I
and
remember that.
it just seems like my resume was built for this job, and then I didn't get it.
Mm.
And I was so bummed, and I said, I have to decide to do something and just do it. And I opened up my LinkedIn to revamp it. Everybody's getting jobs online nowadays, and I started to revamp my LinkedIn. And the first post that popped up said, "I quit my job to hike the Appalachian Trail." And of course, I had heard of the Appalachian Trail. Who hasn't?
Hmm.
But I was like, "Oh yeah, people walk across Spain," and I was like, "I'm gonna do that." And I said, "Would it?" So my mom was sitting next to me at the time, and I said, "Would it be crazy if I quit my job to walk across Spain with no job lined up?" She's like, "No, do it." And I said, "What?" And she's like, "Do it." And I was like, "Okay." So then I started planning the trip and started looking things up. So Camino, it, the direct translation is like the way to Santiago. So you
Hmm.
just start walking, and wherever you start, most in Spain or in different countries in Europe, they start from their house, walk all the way to Santiago, and then walk all the way back from wherever
What?
that was. So
Wow.
I met people who started in Germany. I met people who started in Switzerland. I met people who started in France. But for the most part, most people who are doing it nowadays are people from different countries outside of Europe. And they're doing it from the main starting points. So there's three main caminos in Spain. The north one, which is less common, one that starts in Portugal and walks all the way up to Santiago, and then the main one, which is called the Camino Francés, and you start in South France and you walk all the way to Santiago. It was about 800 kilometers, which roughly translates to about 500 miles. So I
Wow.
started in South France on September 6th, and it took me until October 19th to get there. It took me a little bit longer. I
Uh-huh.
had some extra rest days. I had some problems with blisters, which is something that's very common, and I had some
Yeah, I
problems
would
with
bet.
bed bugs.
Oh,
And
bed
so,
bugs, really?
yeah, so that's
Oh.
something that is pretty common. They do a great job of getting rid of them once they know they have them, but bed bugs, they once they're in your stuff, like if I have one bed bug in my bag,
Mhm.
I can transport it to the next place and then the next place and
It
then
just
the next
follows you
place.
around.
Yeah, and it just follows you around like little dominoes. So I started in South France and I walked all the way there, and then you can walk all the way to the coast. I chose not to walk all the way to the coast. It's an extra like 3, 4 days. I wish I would have done that.
Mm.
I really, now going back, if I'm going to say when I do another Camino, I will walk all the way to the coast this time because they call it Finisterres, they call the end of the world. And you walk there and you're supposed to burn all your clothes and stuff. It's
Mm.
like a big ritual. And I didn't do it because I wanted to go visit Switzerland and I wish that I would have. So when I plan the next one, if I end up in Spain, I'll
Mhm.
probably do another Camino at the end of my teaching, and I will walk to the coast this time.
That's
I
so
knew
cool.
better.
So what is like the history of Caminos? Like, how did they start? Do they have some sort of
Yeah.
significance or?
Yeah. So it started as a Catholic thing. People would walk. They actually would sentence prisoners to it sometimes. If they
Mm.
decided instead of jail, they wanted them to walk the Camino, they would do that. It started out as like a spiritual thing, and it really turned into more of like a self growth. And a lot of people do it as a transitional period too, which is one of the reasons that I did it. I was transitioning in my career, but people will do it whenever they send all their kids to college, and they'll walk the Camino just as kind of a help with the transition. But it started so long ago, and it was when they were walking to Jerusalem, people would
Mm.
choose to do the Camino to Jerusalem. And then when that got a little unsafe over there, Spain said, "Oh, we've got one," and so you're actually walking to the tomb of Saint James. So he's actually, I say buried, but the box is small. I think maybe cremated at this point. It's been
Sure.
quite a while.
I would assume
Um,
so. Yeah.
I would assume there's no longer any real remains. But so you're actually walking to the tomb of St. James. And at the end, when you get to the cathedral, you can actually like go behind this big statue and like hug them from behind. And though I'm not necessarily wasn't necessarily believing that that was like a real spiritual experience, it was. When I got there, I was standing in line. I was like, oh, this is just something that we do. But when I
Mm.
got to actually hug him, it was like, whoa, this is so crazy that I'm feeling like all of these emotions right now. And I just didn't anticipate feeling the way I did when I actually made it all the way there. It was just filled with so much pride, and I just couldn't believe that I was capable of doing that. Like, people don't do things. I would say that there's a few people who would do it in my life, but for the majority of the people in my life would never try something like that. So it was just
Yeah.
really a cool experience to be able to complete it and finish it.